Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be my review of this knife, and this is the Civivi Yonder. And if you are following knives in general, but especially knife YouTube and Civivi knives, you are probably familiar with this knife. It's one that has kind of a lot of excitement and hype surrounding it, and that is in part because this is the first knife design from Zach Whitmore of Zach in the Wild. So Zach has put out some really great content surrounding knives and just been a part of the industry for a while now, and worked on this knife as his first design. So with this knife coming out recently, it actually won the best buy of the year for Blade Show 2024 here this year. So it kind of got the stamp of approval at Blade Show as a great purchase. And that's not really a surprise, being that I think personally so many of Civivi's knives have such a leg up in that category, because I've gotten to check out a lot of Civivi knives and I have just been really blown away by the consistent quality of construction. So with a Civivi knife, you pretty much know that it's going to be made well. And then when you also add in the fact that it's being designed by someone who has, really been a part of and active in the knife community, and is a knife user and a knife appreciator, someone who is enthusiastic about knives, you're pretty much bound to have a knife that is going to cause some excitement. So first of all, this is a knife that Zach said he designed really to be something that can appeal to everyone. One thing he talked about in the video on this knife is that he made the handle so that it should be comfortable for most people. If you have a smaller hand, you can fit all 4 fingers on this flat, and then if you have a wider or larger hand like me, you can get the 3 fingers on that flat, and your 4th finger, or your pinky, can sit on this kind of cutoff. And so I really like that. It's something that I actually ended up liking on the Banter, which, by the way, Ben Peterson is a friend of Zach's and really encouraged him to make a design. In fact, Zach talked about in a video on the Yonder that Ben actually said, we're not leaving this cabin until you come up with a knife design, and that's how it started. So I think it makes sense that there's some probably influence from Ben, or maybe just kind of bouncing ideas back and forth. And one of those is this cutoff here that I really do like. Now, in contrast to the Wii Banter, it also has it on the back here. So it's a little different. It's kind of an equal cutoff, whereas the Banter has this rounded rather than a flat end on the back. And I actually like the looks of this because it kind of makes it look like a coffin handle. So I'll give you a comparison to a Jack Wolf knife, which this is the Vampire Jack. And so that cutoff gives it kind of a similar look to what is considered a coffin-handled knife in the traditional knife community or traditional knife designs. So I do like that, and especially honestly with this wood version, which I ended up getting. So I like the handle. You also have a nice guard here, so your hand doesn't slip forward. So you got, a safe grip and a comfortable grip, even with a large hand like mine. And then the blade is just under 3 inches. I believe it's 2.88 inches. And the overall length is about 6.5 inches, something like that. So it's a very medium, 6.6 inches. So it's a very medium-sized knife, something that most people who can carry a one-hand opening knife will be able to carry, being that it has an under 3-inch blade, but will really get most of your daily work done. I mean, to be completely honest, most of the stuff that I use my pocket knife for, this is more than enough. I could probably get by with a slip joint most of the time, a smaller slip joint. Now, of course, if you're doing stuff outdoors and things, sometimes you might need a larger knife, but I think this is going to pretty much cover what you need on a day-to-day basis. And Zach said in that same video that he actually carried this for about 4 months and kind of going through all kinds of adventures, and it did everything he needed. And I do believe that. Not only is the size nice on the blade, but this is what he calls a spay blade, or a spay point blade. And I can see why that is. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, what is this blade shape? And I think you could probably call it a clip point. You could probably call it a sax or C-ax. I'm not 100% sure. I've never really been sure how you say that. Or a broke back blade, sometimes they're called. But I think calling it a spade blade really makes a lot of sense, because it does look like a traditional spade blade in a way. If I can find the spade blade that I wanted to show you here. Here is a traditional case trapper. And so you can see how they both have this cutoff very far towards the front of the blade, unlike your typical clip point where the cutoff goes farther up the blade. And they both have a pretty good belly. Now, I would say that this is a modernized version of a spade blade, and honestly, probably a more useful version of a spade blade for most tasks. So I like the blade shape a lot, and I found that it worked really well in my everyday tasks. You can get all the way up here to the front, which Ben Peterson calls this the finger test, and that can be useful for finer cuts, but you can also hold it down here, use the jimping, and really put some pressure into cuts. So I think it's a great blade shape. You have kind of a continuous curve or almost continuous curve, so you get the belly, you get a very usable point, but it's pretty sturdy because it's not a full flat grind. It has a saber grind, if you will. But at the same time, it is ground nice and thin, so it slices really well. And so the normal versions have 14C28N steel, which is, in my opinion, a great steel. I actually did a cut test comparison between 3 of the same model with 3 different steels of Jack Wolf knives, between 14C28N steel, S90V steel, and M390. And the 14C28N did very well, perfectly fine, very similar to the others. So I think in real life use, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference in, the durability. 14C28N is a very tough steel and also a very corrosion resistant steel. So I think those are kind of the main things you want in an EDC knife. Now, this is the stainless Damascus version from Civivi, and I have gotten to carry and use a good number of these stainless Damascus knives from Civivi recently, and have been really impressed. One thing I was kind of, concerned about is it going to rust? And I haven't had rusting on them. They have done really well. So I actually don't know what the steels are, but whatever they are, I like how it performs. And you can see this doesn't have a whole lot of the patterning that some Civivi Damascus does, but you still get that kind of fancy look to it with the lines in the blade. And I think it goes really nicely with the Gaborsha wood, or however you pronounce that type of wood. So I do really like the blade, and you can see it has Zach's kind of logo there also. Now, this has thumb studs and a crossbar lock, and actually I'm not sure if this is the first crossbar lock knife that Civivi has made. I don't think it is, but they don't do a whole lot of them. Civivi does more liner locks and button locks, so I'm more familiar with those. So for example, here is the classic Civivi Elementum in a liner lock. They do a great job of those, and this is just the button lock that I had close to me here. This is actually a Sencut, but Sencut, Civivi both do a really great job of their button locks. And I will say, when I first got the Yonder, I felt that the detent, the pressure to open it, was a little light. I would say that it is a little bit lighter than some other crossbar locks that I have. So this is a Benchmade Griptilian, and it definitely has a little bit more strength behind the springs there. So I actually took it apart. I don't take knives apart unless I have to, basically, but I took it apart to see if there were other kind of slots available for the spring, because some crossbar lock knives have multiple different kind of places to place the spring to give it different levels of tension. And I know actually some of the knives from NAF's, Ben Peterson's company, have that. So I took it apart to see, and it doesn't. You only have the one level of tension. I do think I would prefer it was a little bit more. but it's not like it has opened unintentionally or anything for me. So, you know, it could be something that's a little different knife to knife, and who knows, maybe I'm being picky, but I do think I would prefer if it was a little bit more tension on the crossbar lock. I think, see, you can see that I can kind of start to swing it out, and you can see that it can come out with a swing. Now that's true for really most crossbar locks, so I can probably do that here with this knife also. Crossbar locks just don't have quite as much of a detent as some other styles of lock, but just something I wanted to mention. Now, like I said, super well made overall. Came centered. After I took it apart, I was able to get it back together and have it be centered with no blade play. Really solid even when unlocked. No forward and back when locked, and very, very smooth to close. So, you know, that's no surprise from Civivi. And then finally, I didn't talk about the clip. This is a pretty small clip, so I'll show you in comparison to the Banter clip. It's a good bit shorter than the Banter clip. I actually really like it. I think that it's a good match for this handle and this knife, and it, you know, no issues, has worked well for me, and it is reversible, as you can see. So I think that this knife is a really good knife that should appeal to a lot of people, and seems to appeal to a lot of people, being that it does have a good amount of excitement and hype behind it. So as always, I really appreciate you getting to check out these Civivi knives, so thank you to everyone at Civivi. And also, you know, I want to say congratulations to Zach for having a really successful first design, and hopefully we'll see more in the future. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics, and make sure you subscribe to the email newsletter there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.